At this moment inside the combat command center, such a scene directly shocked everyone present at the conference room, especially Zhu Zhang, who was originally calm and thought that the situation was under control. A little panicked, he stood up directly from his chair, his eyes glued to the holographic screen. How could this happen? Our action plan was absolutely confidential, and we had not revealed the plan of dividing troops to the outside world. So how did they know that Zhang Yi and the Tengu squad were in Tion High City? This mission was top secret. Apart from the 3 teams, the only people who knew the intelligence were the people in the command center. Now it was almost certain that there must be an insider who leaked the information. Lan Xinqing's sharp eyes swept over an area at the conference room, which was the intelligence group specifically responsible for communicating with the Tengu team. Lan Xinqing walked over there with a cold face. She came straight to the person in charge of the intelligence team, Lin Kaidai. What is going on? Why did the information leak? Lin Kaidai was a woman in her late 20s. She had a meticulous black short hair, looking dignified and elegant. Even when facing Lan Xinqing's questioning, she had a calm smile on her face. But as she smiled, her face turned pale. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and in an instant, she fell to the control panel right in front of her. There was a cry of surprise around. Lan Xinqing carefully opened her mouth and examined her. She then informed Zhu Zhang that Lin Kaidai had a cyanide capsule in her mouth, and had chosen to commit suicide out of fear of her crimes. The situation was already very clear. There were indeed insiders who leaked information to Eclipse Moon. But Zhu Zhang couldn't understand why someone would become a traitor during this era of mass mutation. What was it all for? Anyway, he has no intention of tracking down those leaks at the moment, mainly because Zhang Yi was facing a very huge crisis at this time. And that was significantly more urgent than finding out Lin Katie's co-conspirator, which seems to be a mystery. The Eclipse Moon and the Tianlong pirates had joined forces to set up a huge trap to hunt Blizzard City's trump card. Zhu Zhang hits the armrest of his chair in frustration. Can the Samsara team go over to support them? Lan Xinqing, impeccable in her decorum as always, took out a white handkerchief and calmly wiped her hands clean. She informed Zhu Zhang that the Samsara squad were currently in Linhai City, and it will take at least half an hour to get there. Also, the battle on Tu Yunlia's side in Huazhou City had already begun, so they would most likely be unable to provide support at the moment. Zhu Zhang, already aware of this, gritted his teeth and informed Zhang Yi over his satellite communication device. Chaos, try to delay the time as much as possible. I will arrange for the Samsara team to come over to support immediately. Zhang Yi's eyes were cold. He immediately realized that something was wrong, and this feeling was close to home. The current situation, although blatantly obvious this time around, could play out similar to what happened to Deng Shintong and the Heavenly God team. And with Zhang Yi's indirect and constant interference in someone in Blizzard City's top management schemes, they naturally wanted him dead. But how could it be so easy to kill him when an Epsilon-level mutant couldn't? That's because Zhang Yi had always been planning several moves ahead. And as the ultimate pessimist, he naturally prepares for the worst-case scenario in order not to be blindsided. Zhang Yi had never believed anyone in Blizzard City, including Zhu Zhang, so he directly cut off the call with Blizzard City's headquarters. Shit was about to get real, and he didn't need any interference in his ear. Gao Chongkong also tried reassuring him about the need to hold on for as long as possible while they hurriedly rush over. But Zhang Yi also cut off communication with him, basically implying that he should fuck off as well. Of course, this abrupt action stunned Zhu Zhang, but he also knew he was not qualified to be angry about this matter. Blizzard City, which he initially believed was impregnable, was actually harboring Eclipse Moon's spies, and he still hadn't even gotten to the bottom of that matter. This was his responsibility as the commander, and he had royally failed. So even if Zhang Yi suspects him, it was reasonable. Anyway, speaking of Zhang Yi, the moment he cut off the call, he immediately informed everyone around him. An undercover agent from Eclipse Moon had appeared in the headquarters. So from now on, follow my command and do not contact headquarters anymore. The current situation was an elaborate and obvious trap set for Zhang Yi and his team. They can't trust anyone from this point forth and can only trust their own strength. He couldn't tell who was a human and who was a ghost, so they should just give it their all to win this battle first. In the conference room at the Combat Command Center, Zhu Zhang asked Lan Xinqing to investigate whether there were any traitors in the room, and on the other hand, he ordered the Samsara squad to quickly go to Tion High City for support. It was impossible to use missiles or the god of death of love to attack indiscriminately, because Zhang Yi and the others were also there. He can only watch quietly, hoping that the Tengu squad can hold on until the Samsara squad comes to the rescue. Standing on a low hill not far away, Feng Guangyu Wenjin took a drag from his lit cigarette and stated coldly, "Let's get started, shall we?" The Eclipse Moon and the Tianlong pirates joined forces. And with such a powerful force, it is absolutely not impossible to destroy an investigation team. What's more, the Tengu squad was put together temporarily and was also recognized as the weakest investigation team, with their captain's official ability index rating only 8,200 points. On the battlefield, the first person to take action was Jinguji Saikairo. He took out 10 talismans from his pocket, threw them into the air, and then formed a seal with his raised right hand. I command all gods, all Tathagatas, having given Dharmakaya, hurry up as ordered. The 10 golden talismans emitted a layer of white smoke in the air, and then turned into 10 black hounds. These were the type of shikigami that Zhang Yi has never seen before. They were as black as ink that gives off the sense of dread and a terrifying feeling. The 10 demon dogs roared and pounced in Zhang Yi's direction. Although Zhang Yi didn't know what their abilities were, as long as his dimensional door was opened, all their attacks would be nullified. In a flash, the 10 black demon dogs were effortlessly taken into his alternate space. But at this moment, Zhang Yi saw the corner of Jinguji Saikairo's mouth raised proudly, extremely pleased with this outcome. His extra dimension space can absorb everything, but the amount it can carry is limited. You only need to infuse it with enough energy that exceeds its limit to destroy it. He put his middle finger and index finger together, placed them to his mouth, and shouted in a deep voice, "Destroy!" Inside Zhang Yi's alternate dimension, the 10 demon dogs seemed to sense something and suddenly began to emit a radiant golden light. Seconds after, they began to explode violently. These were the shikigami specially made by Jinguji Saikairo to deal with Zhang Yi's other dimension ability, named the self-destructing demon dog. Sensing the explosion in the other dimension, Zhang Yi's face remained expressionless, but was also somewhat moved, because the energy contained in these demon dogs were very terrifying. But at the same time, this also undoubtedly confirms Yang Xinshin's earlier conspiracy theory and made him understand that his information had been leaked. This was a hunt against him just like it was against Deng Shentong. Someone truly wanted Deng Shentong to disappear from the Jiangnan region. And the moment he was persuaded to pick up the slack, that same person also wants him, Zhang Yi, to disappear from the Jiangnan region. Zhang Yi's eyes were particularly cold, even better than the ice and snow between heaven and earth at this time. But after Jinguji Saikairo confidently used the self-destructing magic dog, he found that Zhang Yi was not affected at all. He took a few steps back in surprise. How is this possible? That's a detonating talisman with a TNT equivalent of 2 tons. Even a captain-level figure would choose to avoid a self-destructing magic dog of this magnitude, and would not dare to confront it. Could it be that our information was wrong? Jinguji Saikairo's forehead rarely left a drop of sweat. This kind of thing was beyond his expectations, and it was out of his control, which made him panic. Zhang Yi's eyes still remained as cold as the ice that never melted in the Arctic ice sheet. Being betrayed was a sore spot for him and always makes him feel extremely angry. But at the same time, his mind was particularly clear, and he did not let his emotions interfere with his judgment, although his aura was potently laced with murderous intent. Perhaps it was just because he had seen too many distortions of human nature in the end times, so even if he was betrayed, he seemed to be somewhat accustomed to it. Fortunately, I hit deep enough, and this is my home court. Zhang Yi sighed in his heart. The other party misjudged his strength, and the prepared attack was not sufficient. Interesting. Now, I truly want to see who is the hunter and who is the prey. Zhang Yi opened a new communication channel and coldly whispered for the person at the other end to go ahead. Very abruptly, a violent explosion erupted from the ground, precisely where the Tianlong pirates were standing, and above the ground, the shock wave suddenly rushed into the sky, rushing the bodies of many pirates with it. They were at the Morning Dew Harbor, and that area had become a military base after the end of the world. And as one of the backup plans left by Zhang Yi, Chun Jingguan was tasked to bury countless traps and explosives around the harbor. Zhang Yi stares at the destruction with a cold expression and calmly stated, "This is Tion High City, my home court." The Eclipse Moon and especially the Tianlong pirates were caught off guard by this. But before the rest of these bloody pirates could stabilize themselves, a colorful ranging storm of attacks descended on them like meteorites. The attacks pierced their bodies as their number continued to gradually dwindle. A huge blizzard also fell from the sky, and aided by the strong wind, disrupted everyone's vision. Feng Guangyi narrowed his eyes and whispered to his team that something was wrong. Among the Tianlong pirates, a mutant in charge of reconnaissance sensed the origin of these anomalies, and informed his captain Canute in horror. "Captain, there are suddenly many enemies in the northeast and northwest." Canute was genuinely puzzled and questioned in his deep, shark-muffled voice. "Where are the enemies? Isn't there no one in Tion High City? Where did the enemies suddenly come from?" When they came to Tion High City, They searched everywhere for the local residents, trying to rob their supplies. But in the end, nothing was found, and no living people was seen. Now, a large army had suddenly appeared, and more importantly, they weren't on their side. They were the reinforcements from Radiant Prosperity Base and Emerald Waterside Base. In addition to this united front, Uncle Yu and Chunlei were also among the fray. From the very beginning, Zhang Yi was worried that this battle would be too difficult, so he had informed his people from the other major bases in advance. Once the fighting starts and chaos inevitably erupts, they would be on standby nearby and wait for his orders. After all, there was no such reason for the city boss to charge alone into battle, while his subordinates hide at home, doing nothing. Zhang Yi gave orders to Xiao Honglian and the others to interfere with the line of sight and cause chaos. However, they shouldn't get close to the battlefield under any circumstance. Zhang Yi still had a good idea of their strength and didn't want them to be collateral damage. Xiao Honglian had already led dozens of soldiers to a commanding height nearby, and in that moment, Chunlei and Zhuge Qingting worked together to use storms, ice, and snow to create chaos to help Zhang Yi create opportunities to escape. Uncle Yu silently held the anti-material sniper rifle given to him by Zhang Yi, set up the gun at a high place, and began to snipe the pirates. Chunlei stated with some concern, "It's unfortunate that the boss won't let us get close, but will this level of harassment work? They don't seem to be many in number, and there were actually very few people who have the ability to fight. There were even less than 10 mutants, but their presence was mainly to bluff since they won't really be engaging directly in the fight anyway." Sure enough, the explosion of Morning Dew Harbor only brought a brief shock to the Tianlong pirates and Eclipse Moon. After they came to their senses, they found out that the enemies that suddenly appeared were not the reinforcements from Blizzard City, but the natives of Tion High City. This made them feel at ease immediately. Canute sneered and stated calmly, "They are just some small fries and can't cause any trouble." He immediately arranged a team to deal with Xiao Honglian and the other natives, while the rest, together with the Eclipse Moon organization, join him in eliminating Zhang Yi and the others in the transparent cage. But under the cover of the blizzard, no one saw what Zhang Yi was doing. He took a deep breath and knew in his heart that it was time to fight desperately. The enemy he was facing this time around was not so easy to deal with. Fortunately, he had never exposed his true trump card. Zhang Yi stood in the center of the cage, his hands clasped into a ball in the air, and the familiar dark and golden lightning suddenly began to condense between his palms. With a crackle, a condensed purple sphere, and the dark and golden lightning became more and more numerous and thicker. This strange and twisted power was simply overwhelming and destructive. Bailey Chongqing and the rest of the Tengu team around him widened their eyes and subconsciously stepped back several steps. Only Liang Yu, Flower, and Yang Xinxi knew what this power was. But Liang Yu, ever the vigilant martial artist, raised her sword and remained on high alert around Zhang Yi. It was obvious that she didn't trust anyone from Blizzard City regardless of their teammate's status. There were traitors in Blizzard City after all, and apart from Yang Xinxin and Flower, any of her teammates could use this opportunity to launch a sneak attack against their captain. The dark purple and unstable substance became more and more dense, and condensed into a huge dark and dark purple sphere in Zhang Yi's palm. Then, as Zhang Yi moved his hands, he slowly compressed it into a black ball the size of a volleyball. "Get away from me!" Zhang Yi shouted. Everyone in the Tengu team quickly got out of the way. Zhang Yi threw the dark purple ball high up in the air, and then instantly activated the ability of 20 times acceleration. He jumped up, more than 3 meters high, and then hit the void ball with his right fist. With a loud whoosh, the dark and purple void ball instantly cut through space, passed through the invisible cage, and flew straight to the direction where Canute was. At the same time, Canute, who was still deploying troops, suddenly felt an overwhelming power itching closer to him. The instinct of the beast inside him alarmed him about that danger that was approaching. But he was too close to Zhang Yi, less than a kilometer away, and his wrong judgment of Zhang Yi's strength made him not choose to dodge. Instead, he decided to resist. He tried to block this attack with his huge and solid body. Because behind him, there was Chun Siyu, the caster who drew a line on the ground. "Time to die, you measly worms." By the time the dark and purple void got within a hair's breadth of Canute, he realized that he'd royally fucked up. A dull and painful cry came from Canute's minions, who were frightened and at a loss when their captain tried to block Zhang Yi's attack head-on. Canute's huge shark mouth made a piercing scream before his huge body soared into the sky. He then roared in Fengguang Yuanjin's direction not far away. "You lied to me, Ronin. His strength was not what you said." The next moment, the whole space was shrouded by a dark sphere emitting a terrifying destructive force that suddenly rose from the ground, leaving a giant sphere with a radius of hundreds of meters. The power contained in it made Feng Guangyuanjin and his teammates widen their eyes in disbelief. The information that damn guy gave us was wrong. How can this be a deputy captain level combat power with a power index of only 8,200 points? After this move, almost everything at the place where Canute was originally located had been quietly wiped out. Except for Canute, who might still be alive. But the hundreds of pirates behind him, including Chun Siu, the ability user of drawing a prison, were all wiped out. There were thousands of members in the 4th division of the Tianlong pirates before their arrival, but only 300 or 400 were left at this time. Such a scene shocked everyone, especially the members of the Tengu team. With their strength, they couldn't even imagine how terrible the power of this move was. Real captain-level strength. Yi stared at Zhang Yi and muttered these words. Even his previous captain, Deng Shintong, didn't have such a terrifying large-scale area of effect attack ability. This is definitely captain level, there can be no mistake. And the standard for captain level power index was 9,000 points and above. Perhaps only Bailey Chongqing and the Black Robe Squad had some understanding about their captain's true strength. They would naturally think of the battle in Tion High City a few months ago, although the predicament at this time was nothing compared to that time. They fought against a real Epsilon-class mutant. And in the end, it was Zhang Yi who absorbed her essence after he led them to victory. So, no matter how powerful Zhang Yi had become, they could understand. Yi and Wu Di checked the invisible barrier and found nothing limiting their movement anymore. The barrier has disappeared, Wu Di stated excitedly, surprised with this outcome. But Zhang Yi raised his head and stared at the few people standing on the hill nearby, and coldly reminded everyone that the real battle had just begun. From the very beginning, the Tianlong pirates were not regarded as truly dangerous opponents by Zhang Yi. The only ones who put pressure on him were the guys who had appeared on the top of the mountain, the eclipse moon. Both sides stared at each other, knowing full well that the key to ending this battle was to get rid of each other. Bailey Chongqing hesitated briefly before informing his captain of Zhu Zheng's intel. Apparently, the Samsara squad was 30 minutes out at most, so they need to hold on for another half an hour. Zhang Yi glanced at him coldly and did not comment. He was still undecided whether Zhu Zhang could be trusted. But since he couldn't make up his mind, he might as well let things play out first. Bailey, leave Feng Guangyuanjin to me. You guys take care of the others. Zhang Yi, as agreed before, let Bailey Chongqing be responsible for arranging tactics and the distribution of combat power. He, on the other hand, only needs to hold back the opponent's general for half an hour. He can try to trust Zhu Zheng once, but not completely. Bailey Chongqing took the order and immediately began to assign tasks to the members of the Tengu team. Qi Guangming, Yi Jikong, Meng Xiu, Xue Miao, Lu Yinghao. You guys are responsible for cleaning up the pirates. These few people sent out were all weak in the Tengu team and were good at cleaning up miscellaneous soldiers. So the remaining pirates were perfect for them. Bailey Chongqing decided to concentrate superior forces to annihilate Eclipse Moon first. Hence, everyone else should follow me and deal with the Ronin of Eclipse Moon. Zhang Yi also gave instructions to the people around him. Liang Yu, you need to help me hold back the main force of Eclipse Moon, while Flower protects Xinxin. In terms of speed, there are not many mutants present who can catch up with her. Run away when necessary, Zhang Yi declared. The most important thing is to save your life and Xinxin's life as well. Okay. She clenched her dragon's roar in her hand and challenged a particular individual defiantly. She'd already found her opponent. Maybe it's an induction between top warriors. But on the top of the mountain, Tsukamoto Nobunaga stared back at Liang Yu with a murderous aura. The distance between the two felt non-existent as Liang Yu matched his murderous intent without the slightest suffocation. Yang Xinxin got on Flower's back and reassured his big brother not to worry. Flower and I will be able to protect ourselves. While Zhang Yi was deploying his troops, Feng Guangyuanjin was not idle either. The terrifying power that this warehouse manager suddenly burst out made him feel that the situation was beyond his control. Since he began to establish the organization at Guandu, relying on the divination of Mayumi Takeuchi, he has never encountered such an uncontrollable situation in battle. Even if he encounters an opponent that he cannot solve, he can detect the danger in advance and escape early. But he didn't expect that he would meet his nemesis on the other side of the sea. Feng Guangyuanjin felt so uncomfortable when he met Zhang Yi, and this feeling also made him eager to eliminate him. Jinguji, you and I will kill the other team's captain first. Jinguji Saikaro pushed his dark-rimmed glasses and rarely denied Feng Guangyuanjin's opinion, because he knew that his captain was a guy who rarely felt any danger in battle. Once he asked others for help, it only meant that the opponent really made him feel insecure. But unexpectedly, one member could no longer hold back his impulse. As a killing maniac, Dagonghui Yanjin had to wait for orders all the time, and his patience was exhausted, especially when he saw Zhang Yi and the other powerful opponents beside him. He even ignored Feng Guangyuanjin next to him and made a mad dash forward. He tore his shirt to pieces and jumped down as he descends the hill, holding the huge dragonfly blade. His golden aura rushed up to the sky, carrying his long hair with it. And after the transformation, he was like a terrible beast, with ferocious fangs in his mouth. His eyes were fixed on Zhang Yi the moment he made his landing. "Hey, are you the strongest one? Come on, fight me." Everyone present knew the name and appearance of this mutant. He showed amazing strength in the previous 2 battles and was considered as a very formidable opponent. The Jiangnan Region Research Department conducted a data analysis on him and gave a supernatural power index of 7,200 points. Facing such an opponent, Bailey Chongqing took the initiative to walk out before Zhang Yi could speak. "Ronin, how about I fight with you?" Bailey Chongqing said coldly. Dagonghui Yanjin's eyes fell on him. Between masters, the strength of the opponent can be felt just by the momentum of the opponent. Except for Zhang Yi. Dagonghui Yanjin sensed that special smell on Bailey Chongqing, the smell of the same kind. They are all mutants who pursue the ultimate power. Dagonghui Yanjin raised the corner of his mouth. He did not give a positive answer, but rushed over like a hurricane. He raised the dragonfly blade with both hands, and then chopped it down suddenly. It happened so fast that only the few high-level mutants saw his movements. Fortunately, the same goes for Bailey Chongqing. He raised his huge Fong Tian painted halberd high in front of him, and with a reverberating clang, the sound of metal collision pierced the eardrums. The solid ground under the feet of the 2 men, which had been bombarded by the bombs, exploded at this moment, and the ground within a radius of about 50 meters sank, and a huge deep pit was shaken out by their impact. Bailey Chongqing blocked the attack of Dagonghui Yanjin.